Hello friends, so today's story is the final test. The clock struck midnight and Sophie sat at her desk surrounded by piles of notes, textbook and half-empty cup of coffee. The room was silent except for the ticking of the clock, a constant reminder that the time was running out. It was the night before the most important exam of her life, one that would determine her future. The pressure was immense, and she felt the weight on her entire academic career on the shoulders. Sophie had always been a top student. She was the one who got the highest marks, the one who never missed any assignment, and the one who all teachers praised. But this exam was different. It wasn't just another test, it was her final exam before university admissions, and she knew that her performance would shape the rest of her life. Her parents had worked hard to provide for her education, and her teachers had high expectations for her. Failure wasn't an option, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't focus. The words on the pages blurred together, and the more she studied, the more she doubted herself. What if she wasn't good enough? What if she made a mistake? Her heart raced as she thought of all the possible ways she could fail. Just then, her phone buzzed. It was a message from her best friend, Mia. Mia had always been the calming presence in her life, someone who could pull her out of her darkest moments. Sophie, I know you are stressing out, but seriously, take a break. You have studied enough. You will ace it. Sophie started at the message for a moment. Could she really take a break? It felt impossible, yet she knew Mia was right. She hadn't slept properly in days, and her brain was starting to shut down. Sighing, she put her books aside and walked over to the windows, pulling back the curtains. The city lights twinkled below, and the night sky was dotted with stars. She thought back to her childhood when exam had been nothing more than minor inconvenience. She used to spend her evening playing outside with Mia, laughing and running through the streets without a care in the world. But now everything felt so much heavens, so much more serious. Sophie's mind drifted to her parents. They had always been her biggest supporters, sacrificing so much for her education. They never pressured her, but she knew how much they hoped for her success. Her mother's words echoed in her head. You are more than your grades, Sophie. Do your best, and that will always be enough. The thought brought a tear to her eye. She knew her mother was right, but it was hard to believe it when the world around her seemed to judge everyone by their academic achievement. Taking a deep breath, Sophie made a decision. She would give herself a few hours of sleep. No more cramming, no more fairness of revision. She had studied hard for weeks, and she needed to trust that it was enough. She set her alarm for the morning and crawled into bed, closing her eyes and allowing herself to drift off. When the alarm rang, the sun was just beginning to rise. Sophie felt a strange calmness as she prepared for the day. She ate a small breakfast, packed her bag, and made her way to the exam hall. The school was buzzing with nervous energy, students flipping through their notes one last time, trying to memorize the final details. Sophie sat down at her desk, her hands shaking slightly as she opened her exam booklet. The question started back at her. Waiting, she took a deep breath and began. At first, it was hard to concentrate. The pressure of a moment weighed heavily on her, and she felt the failure panic rising in her chest. Then she remembered the words of her mother and Mia. She had prepared. She had given her best. This was just another test. One moment is a much longer journey. With that thought, Sophie found her rhythm. One question at a time. She worked through the paper. Some answers came easily while others required careful thought. But she kept going. Time passed quickly and soon the exam was over. As she handed it the paper, she felt the wave of relief wash over her. It was done. In the weeks that followed, Sophie tried to push the exam out of her mind. She spent time with her family, caught up with Mia, and even took a painting as the way to relax. She had done her best, and now she could only wait. Finally, the result day arrived. Sophie's hands shook as she opened the envelope, her heart pounding in her chest. She scanned the page, and then there it is. She had passed the flying colors. All handwork and sleepless nights and self-doubt, it had all been worth it. Her parents hugged her tightly, proud beyond words. Mia called her, screaming with excitement, but in that moment, as Sophie stood holding her result, she realized something important. The exam had been a big part of her life, but it wasn't everything. She was proud of herself, not just for the result, but for the effort she had put in, for facing her fears, and for learning the trust in herself. As she looked out the window at the sky above, she felt a sense of peace. The journey wasn't over, but she knew she could handle whatever come next. Because no matter what challenges she faced, she had learned one important lesson. She was more than her exam, more than her grades. She was strong, determined, and ready for whatever the future held. Thank you. Bye bye.